Motorcycles, cars, music, three things that I grew up in, and I'm blessed enough to be able to continue.
Danny Koker's show, Counting Cars, once had it all, from roaring engines to jaw-dropping customs in a team that felt like family. But behind the scenes things weren't always what they seemed, and not every team member stayed in the picture. One by one, familiar faces vanished from the show with no explanation or farewell. Some walked away quietly. Others were pushed away, and a few left behind rumors that never quite disappeared. What really went down inside Count's Customs when the cameras stopped rolling? And why did some team members walk away at the height of the show's success? Was it pressure, betrayal, or something else entirely? The truth would definitely change how you view Counting Cars forever. The rise of Danny Koker and Counting Cars. Every organization has its ups and downs, but for Danny Koker and Counting Cars, the stakes were higher. Because when your empire runs on custom builds and loyal employees, even a small crack can send everything crumbling down. Danny Koker has always been extra careful when it comes to challenges and tensions in his garage. Because Count Customs isn't just any business, it's his lifelong dream, and long before he became the face-of cable television's most successful reality shows, Danny Koker was just a kid with a dream and passion for restoring cars, upgrading them, and giving them attitude. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, and raised in Detroit, Michigan, Koker's early years were deeply influenced by the city that gave birth to America's automotive industry. Detroit wasn't just the place he lived, it was part of his DNA. And unlike most kids, Danny didn't have to wait for adulthood to start working on cars. His father, Danny Koker, Sr., wasn't just a musician. He was also a car enthusiast. The elder Koker performed with legendary groups like the Cathedral Quartet and the Rexford Family Singers, but when he was home, he spent countless hours in the garage with his son. That garage became Danny's first classroom. And by the time he was a teenager, Danny was already fixing cars and giving them a new story. But Danny Koker didn't stop at car culture. In the early 1990s, he started building a local following in Las Vegas as Count Coolrider, a late-night horror movie host on a small TV station. Clad in leather sunglasses and a signature bandana, he introduced B-movies with a rock and roll flair that stood out. It was campy and fun. But most importantly, it gave Danny a platform and experience with television. But when he eventually launched his own garage, Count's Customs, it was never meant to be just an empire. In fact, Danny started the garage for practical reasons. He needed a place where he wouldn't have to wait in Lanedo get work done on his own rides. But what began as a small custom garage tucked away in an industrial stretch of Las Vegas slowly became something much bigger. Dye's style of classic restorations with a rebellious twist immediately drew attention. Together with his team, he turned everyday vehicles into works of art, and soon word spread quickly about Count's Customs. Then came the break that changed everything. In the late 2000s, Pawn Stars exploded onto the History Channel. The show was set in Las Vegas and it featured the Harrison family running the gold and silver pawn shop, and Danny Koker was brought in regularly as a car and motorcycle expert. Viewers immediately noticed his edge, humor, and credibility. And every time he walked into the shop, fans wanted more. The producers noticed, too. And in 2012, Counting Cars debuted as a spin-off series. It focused entirely on Danny Count's Customs and the wild custom builds rolling in and out of his garage. The show wasn't just about restoring classic cars. It was about loyalty, vision, and the people behind the machines. Each episode showed a different project, from a beat-up Mustang turned into a showpiece to a Harley-Davidson reimagined with flames and chrome. But at the center of it all was the passionate and perfectionist Danny, who was always pushing for something better. Audiences connected with the show immediately. And by its third season, Counting Cars had become one of the History Channel's highest-rated shows. Its success wasn't just in the drama or the custom jobs. It was in the authenticity. This wasn't scripted chaos or fake tension. These were real mechanics, real builds, and real stakes. Danny Koker himself didn't slow down. Outside of the show, his personal car collection grew to more than 100 vehicles, each one restored with the same obsessive care he demanded in his shop. He launched multiple business ventures that carried his signature rock and roll flair. He launched Count's Vamped Rock Bar, which became a hot spot for live music and classic car enthusiasts. He opened Count's Tattoo Company to tap into Vegas's body art culture. He even fronted a band, Count 77, blending his love of music with his impeccable stage presence. But with all that success came pressure, especially as the expectations inside Count's Customs became higher than ever. The team Danny built had to keep up with a global audience, tight deadlines, and multi-million-dollar projects. The stakes were no longer just about finishing a car on time. They were about protecting the brand, and not everyone could handle it. Over the years, Counting Cars gained a reputation not just for custom builds, but for sudden employee exits, bitter fallouts, and a revolving door of employees who just couldn't live up to the standard Danny set. Some of these employees were fired, while others disappeared without any official notice, and the fans definitely noticed. What are the names Danny Koker has quietly distanced himself from over the years? And who are the employees who didn't make the cut? Behind the scenes tension and drama. For fans watching at home, Counting Cars always felt like the perfect blend of passion and horsepower. You had classic rides, custom rebuilds, and a tight-knit crew who looked like they were just a bunch of friends doing what they loved. But if you peeled back the curtain, you'd discover things were very different behind the scenes. There was pressure, creative strain, and personalities that didn't always mesh. Because the bigger the show got, the harder it became to keep everything running smoothly. And unfortunately, not everyone was built for it. One of the reasons for the tension at Counting Cars was the reality of production. While each episode of the show might only run 30 minutes on screen, the projects themselves were anything but short-term. These were real cars with real issues, and every build had to meet Danny Koker's exacting standards. That meant months of labor, disassembling frames, custom welding, reupholstering interiors, hunting down rare parts, and painting everything to perfection. Unlike other reality shows that bend the truth for fast results, Counting Cars made it a point to stay honest to the work. That was their code, and what you saw on screen was a compressed version of reality, but not a scripted fantasy. The builds were always legitimate. The repairs were authentic, and the pressure to get them done was overwhelming. Still, television isn't built on just the hard work of transforming cats, it's built on tension and the production. Team behind Counting Cars knew it. While the work in the garage was real, the way it was edited often turned minor disagreements into major blow-ups. Conversations were spliced. Deadlines were emphasized. Long days were made to look like last-minute scrambles. And over time, that kind of spotlight began to create cracks. Inside Count's Customs, Danny ran a tight ship. He was obsessed with quality. Every vehicle that left his shop carried his name, his reputation, and often a 6F figure price tag. That meant no shortcuts, no half measures, and no room for laziness. Employees who didn't match his level of commitment were either pushed to step up or pushed out completely. That kind of intensity can make or break a team. And as the show grew, so did the pressure. Fame only added fuel to the fire. What started as a family-style operation suddenly became a global brand. Millions of viewers were watching. Tourists started showing up at the garage. Fans wanted autographs. Customers wanted impossible timelines. And the employees, some handled the attention with humility, while others just couldn't. There were egos, rivalries, and moments when the tension in the shop had nothing to do with the cars and everything to do with personalities clashing. Some workers began to feel like TV stars, while others resented the ones who hogged screen time. The same guys who once joked around during oil changes were now being mic'd up, monitored, and occasionally misrepresented on national TV. That kind of environment changes people, and for some of the team it wasn't for the better. Behind the camera, Count's Customs also had to deal with legal and financial headaches that began to surface as the show progressed. When you're restoring high V-value vehicles for wealthy clients, often under tight deadlines and public scrutiny, mistakes could get expensive, and for Count's Customs, there were disputes over estimates, delays in delivery, and disagreements about modifications. And some of that ended up in court. While most of those issues were settled quietly, some cases became public, leaving a dent in the reputation of Danny Koker and his business. For Danny, this was more than frustrating. It was a reminder that success sometimes came with legal strings attached. By the time the show reached its peak, the tension had built into something heavier. Some employees started missing work. Others made bad financial decisions, and one in particular ended up in a legal battle with Danny Koker, Joseph Frontier's embezzlement scandal. Every workplace has its quiet employees, the ones who stay in the background, don't make much noise, and rarely end up in front of the camera. But sometimes it's the ones you least expect who end up causing the biggest damage. Uncounting cars. That person was Joseph Frontier. While most viewers probably didn't even remember his face, Frontier wasn't just another crew member. He wasn't welding frames or airbrushing flames. He was handling something far more sensitive, the money. Frontier was hired as the company's bookkeeper and was brought in to manage payroll, track expenses, and make sure Kustoms stayed financially healthy behind the scenes. In a business that revolved around high-end custom builds and multi-000 budgets, his role was crucial, but in 2016, that quiet accountant suddenly became the center of a very loud controversy. Court documents revealed that Danny Koker's shop, Kustoms, had filed a lawsuit against Joseph Frontier, accusing him of stealing more than $75,000 from the business. And this wasn't just a case of rounding errors or minor overspending, the claims were specific, detailed, and serious. According to the lawsuit, Frontier had allegedly used the company's funds to cover personal expenses, including a hefty down payment in a Range Rover and multiple airline tickets for private travel. What made the allegations even worse was that he didn't just take money, he reportedly tried to cover it up. The lawsuit accused him of forging Danny's signature on several documents and misrepresenting financial records in a way that made the theft harder to detect. For a company that prided itself in trust, loyalty, and blue-collar values, this was a gut punch. Kustoms wasn't just a garage. It was a family. Or at least that's how Danny and his crew saw it. And for someone in a position of responsibility to betray that trust so blatantly wasn't just unprofessional, it was personal. But Danny didn't just point fingers at the bookkeeper. The lawsuit also named the staffing agency that placed Frontier in the role, Randstad USA. The claim was that the agency had failed to properly vet Frontier or disclose issues from his previous employment history. Essentially, Kustoms alleged that Randstad sent them a ticking time bomb and then washed their hands of it. The lawsuit made headlines, especially among fans of the show. Viewers were shocked. While Counting Cars had always shown a bit of shop tension and the occasional personality clash, no one expected an embezzlement scandal to hit the crew. It was the kind of drama that didn't need editing to feel intense. And yet, if you watched the show carefully, Frontier's exit was handled with almost eerie silence. There was no on-camera confrontation, no explanation from Danny, and no final goodbye. He simply disappeared from the series without a trace. The show kept moving forward, the builds continued, and the audience was left to put the pieces together based on court filings and media reports. What made it all even stranger was how effectively Frontier vanished from public view. Unlike some former cast members who later popped up on social media or in interviews, Joseph Frontier went completely off the grid. It was as if he'd erased himself entirely after the lawsuit came to light. Whether that was by design or just a reflection of the legal mess he was caught in, no one can say for sure. As for the legal case itself, the public documents indicate that the dispute eventually moved through the court system, but many of the final details remain sealed or unresolved in the public eye. Kustoms took the matter seriously, but Danny Koker never made a public statement about the incident, and that silence speaks volumes. For a man known for his big personality and love of storytelling, Danny's choice to stay quiet about Frontier might have been his way of drawing a line. Maybe he didn't want to give the scandal more oxygen. Or maybe for someone so deeply committed to loyalty, the betrayal just cut too deep to talk about. But what's certain is this. Joseph Frontier's actions left a permanent scar on Count's Customs. It wasn't just about the stolen money. It was about the violation of trust. And for Danny Koker,